Everything you buy is getting smaller, more expensive, and just worse. This is no big secret, but what you might not realize is the extent that we are being gaslit across the board to accepting goods, services, and foods that are a shadow of what we are promised and what we once got. Why is it that food companies are making all sorts of excuses for worsening value while enjoying record profits? Why is it that in some cases you're paying 6 times more than you were just a few years ago, while that kind of increase is not even remotely in line with inflation? Today, I'm looking at 5 heritage chocolate brands to find out how they were getting away with it, and I was honestly shocked by the incredible fall in value we get now compared to just a few years ago. This is the Great Retconning, with me, JC, Dad, consumer, chocolate lover, and I'm on a mission to use my years of business and marketing knowledge to help you understand the way big corporates are slowly manipulating you. If you've ever read George Orwell's 1984, you'll know all about the Ministry of Truth, the fictional organization where the protagonist's job was to go back and rewrite history to fall in line with the party's message. When the party announced that they have increased chocolate rations whilst actually reducing them, his job was to go back and edit the records to reflect the new truth, slowly gaslighting the public to believe that things are getting better.
Line 2 should read, Mini-Prod forecast increased chocolate ration April 1984 from 20 to 25 grams per week.
And there's something very Orwellian about the chocolate situation we are seeing right now. We are being told that improvements are being made, whilst we are paying vastly more for the same, or sometimes worse, product. This value brainwashing we are subject to is not a new phenomenon. It's been happening slowly for decades, but I first started to pay attention a few years ago when I saw a bar of Nestle Aero chocolate proudly stating it now comes with more bubbles. I wasn't the only one wondering why they didn't just come straight out and say, now with less chocolate instead, but at the time it seemed funny. Another brand making an obvious marketing faux pas, it will be quickly forgotten. But since 2020, we have all started to feel the pinch and get mildly hacked off by the faster and faster erosion of our buying power. Before we dive in to uncover the truth behind the 5 biggest culprits, can I ask you to do me a quick favor? Hit that hype button just below. Supermarkets and the bean counters in these factories won't tell you the truth, but when you hype this video, it pushes this investigation to more families who deserve to know more about these insidious tactics. Let's start the audit with a major bugbear of mine, Cadbury's Dairy Milk. This is a flavour that everyone growing up in the UK remembers. For 119 years, an average of 350 million Cadbury Dairy Milk chocolates are sold worldwide every single year. It's a cultural institution. In 1905, George Cadbury Jr. created a milk chocolate bar with more milk than anything on the market, and by 1914 it had become the company's best-selling product. The dairy milk we have today is a far cry from these glorious beginnings. Cadbury has reduced the milk and milk solid content, replacing it with oils and emulsifiers, making dairy milk taste more oily rather than creamy. The replacement of expensive cocoa butter for cheaper palm and shea fats mean that it's not what it once was. Heck, it's barely legally describable as chocolate anymore. It sits at the absolute legal minimum of 20% cocoa solids, as opposed to the 26% it was just over a decade ago. If your chocolate feels oily rather than snapping cleanly, that's why. And they haven't just made it worse, they've made it smaller too. They quietly removed the famous glass and a half phrase from the wrapper way back in 2010, and contrary to belief, this wasn't because of the ingredient change, it's because the bar got smaller. In 2012, they shaved down and rounded the edges of dairy milk bars to reduce the quantity of chocolate. And as 45-gram bars slowly become 33, you barely notice the change. This combination of inflation, shrinkflation, and worsification have almost certainly contributed to their 1.6% reported decline in volume production. People are fed up, and not in a good way. The final nail in the coffin for dairy milk came in 2024 when Cadbury lost its Royal Warrant. a warrant it had held since 1854, and the hashtag Boycott Cadbury 2026 left many shops with unwanted or heavily reduced excess stock. The brand is collapsing from the inside out. They've pulled the wool over your eyes, but they got spotted. Retcon rating 7 out of 10. Next up, Galaxy. The Galaxy bar is one of the most distinctive milk chocolate bars, characterized by its smooth mouthfeel, but over recent years these guys have become the masters of the two-punch strategy. First, they raise the price, then they shrink the bar. Recently, they dropped their mid-size bar from 110 grams down to 100 grams, a 9% shrinkage. Not so bad, right? Well, at the same time, the price in Tesco jumped from 99 pence to £1.25. Again, that doesn't seem like much, but taking these two changes into consideration results in an almost 40% jump in price. To make matters worse, and as you probably expect, the formulation has changed too. A few years ago, cocoa solids slipped below milk fats on the ingredients label, meaning that to keep the same fat ratio, and therefore texture, they have to replace that fat with, you guessed it, palm oil, shea oil, and other cheap industrial fats. So in just a few years, we have a 40% price increase, less chocolate and less cocoa products in the bar, replaced with cheap alternatives. Mars actually claimed they made these changes so fans wouldn't have to compromise on quality. Right, because everyone knows the best way to maintain quality is to give the customer a cheaper product and charge them more. Retcon rating 8 out of 10. Number 3. The Mars bar. This to me is one of the most egregious changes we've seen on the shop shelves. The iconic bar dropped from 58 grams to 51, and now we're seeing more 40-gram versions hitting the shelves. That's a 31% reduction in weight, while Sainsbury's are selling the new 40-gram bar at a whopping £1.20. Compare this to just 18 years ago, when a 62.5-gram bar cost around 35 pence, and we can see that the cost has gone from £5.60 a kilo to £30 a kilo. While cocoa is still the same, reported 25% of the overall weight, this is a nearly 6-fold increase in cost, gram for gram, over a time where the national minimum wage just over doubled. So, in real terms, your money buys only 1/3 of the amount of Mars bar for your money than it did in 2008. Retcon rating 10 out of 10. At a tied number 4 are a double whammy of legal disqualification, McVitie's Penguin and Club bars. You heard that right. These chocolate biscuits have been disqualified and can no longer be lawfully sold as chocolate in the UK. Why? Because cocoa solids now make up less than the legal limit for a chocolate bar. It's the same story with white Kit Kats, by the way. They've moved cocoa butter further down the ingredients list while palm oil moved up, indicating a lower proportion of cocoa butter and a higher proportion of palm oil. They've cut the cocoa butter to below 20%, which means they too can't be called chocolate anymore. If the company isn't allowed to call it chocolate, why are you paying chocolate prices for it? Retcon rating for this duo 9 out of 10. And finally, Maltesers. You know that chocolate coating? The little crispy shell that makes them special? You know how they put that coating on now? They lay some chocolate on the floor and skim the biscuity centre from one end of the factory to another like a stone across a pond. That's my theory anyway. Shoppers have been noticing the chocolate's paper thin. The manufacturers blamed rising cocoa costs. Fair enough, right? Cocoa's expensive. Except, cocoa prices have absolutely plummeted this year. Dropped 70%. Weather got better. Supply came back. Crisis over. But they didn't drop the price. They raised it. That's not inflation. That's just taking the absolute... And they know exactly what they're doing. Nestlé, the company that makes Maltesers, literally admitted in their earnings report that swapping ingredients for cheaper stuff made them over £600 million in profit across their entire company. That's their own words. in their own report. It's not accidental, it's not necessary, it's a choice. Retcon rating 5 out of 10. Okay, let's lighten things up a bit. Not everything's gone to... There are brands that actually give a monkeys. The first one you should consider is Tony's Chocolonely. These guys have made a chunky pledge. While the heritage brands were busy shaving off grams, Tony's vowed not to compromise the chunkiness of their bars, with their CEO stating, "We're not going to downsize that to hit a certain price point." Their 180-gram bar stays 180 grams, typically bigger than most products on the shelf. And here's what makes them different. They're transparent. They put their price up on the shelf, but CEO Douglas Lamont said, "We think consumers are prepared to pay the premium for something that tastes great. No shrinkflation, no chemistry experiments." They pay West African cocoa farmers a living wage and operate Tony's open chain, enabling other businesses to source ethical cocoa through their model. It costs more, but it's worth it. The second win is the M&S Collection Single Origin Dark Chocolate. Look at the label. You'll see 3 ingredients: cocoa mass, cane sugar, and cocoa butter. That's it. Compare that to the 10 to 20 ingredients from the big brands. With 85% cocoa solids, it's 4 times more chocolatey than a dairy milk, and it contains 15 grams of sugar instead of 56. It's chocolate as it used to be, as opposed to scientifically formulated nostalgia bait masquerading as the real thing. The food industry is betting that you won't read the labels or notice when they replace real cocoa with cheap oils. And sadly, for the most part, you won't. Next time you're under those bright supermarket lights, check the back and take note of the prices. Check the ingredients list. If cocoa butter isn't in the top 3, put it back. If a brand treats you like a unit to be mined, vote with your wallet. I am just starting out this channel, and it would mean the world to me and my family if you subscribed and hit that hype button one more time to push back against corporate greed. Comment below and let me know, which aisle should we audit next? The watered-down meat section or the fake healthy cereals? Until next time, stay sharp, stay informed, and keep your eyes open for the Great Retconning.